Hi, everyone. It's good to be here.
I am so excited to talk to you because you have actually been quite a catalyst, and I've been able to share well, getting to be on the calls with you and seeing you at SheEO Summit in Toronto before the whole world basically closed down, which is
Yeah,
incredible. So why don't we start here? Why don't we get to know you a little bit? Tell me
sure.
about what you're doing and what you're working on.
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. My name is Wakumi Douglas. I am one of the co-founders and executive director of S.O.U.L Sisters Leadership Collective, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. And our work is focused on mobilizing systems involved girls and non-binary youth, Black, Brown, and Indigenous, to interrupt cycles of state and community violence, poverty, and oppression. And we do lots of different programs, both in New York City and Miami. The work that brings us to the SheEO community, which we love being a part of, I have to say, um, is our Fashion for Social Change program, which we just newly named that. It's a youth social entrepreneurship strategy meant to give girls of color, or really activate what's already inside girls and non-binary youth of
Mhm.
color, and give them a platform to create and design awesome retail products with a social message. They do that, and we partner with retailers and local businesses to market, produce, and sell the products, and they kick the profits back to us for scholarships for girls, seed money for their ventures, as well as income to sustainably fund our organization and our work around racial justice. So that's our work, and that's what brings us to the SheEO community.
Oh my gosh, just in that alone, there's so much for me to unpack. First of all, the fact that you started off with your pronouns is amazing, and I thank you
Mm,
for that because,
yeah.
how we show up and how we talk about creates inclusivity, right, with our language and the words we use and show up there. And so, thank you for that because it's also a great reminder for me. On your Fashion for Change, which I love, do you have any examples of things that they have created or have been working
I
on?
do. Yeah. So we just launched our very first Black Girls Design Camp, and it was a huge success. It was so great. Um, and I launched it really like with some guidance from Vicky around what is a good way to go forward with our work. And she was asking me some critical questions, and in her very Vicky way, Push gave me a little nudge, and it caused us to create our Fashion for Social Change program. And no, not our Black Girls Design Camp program. And what we did, that program is 3 days, 2 consecutive days, and then a week in between, and then a third day. And what happens on the first 2 days is the girls spend time talking about social justice, getting to know each other, getting some language for their experiences, and selecting a positive social message that they want to promote through the garments. And then the second day they spend working with volunteer design mentors. And these are women of color who are in the design field, working in corporate like design firms and houses for large brands, who are entrepreneurs themselves and have small brands, who just design on the side, all kinds of different designers who volunteer their time to work with the girls to design. And what the girls worked on they worked on a few different things. The young people were very concerned about silence around Black queer youth identity. So they
Oh,
designed this really beautiful t-shirt. All these designs are on our website, by the way, soulsistersleadership.org. And we also launched the girls' designs at the SheEO Global Summit in Toronto a couple months ago. So if you were at the Global Summit, you would have seen our table and you would have seen our samples. But
amazing.
the girls' design, one design was really beautiful. It was a Black girl with an big, beautiful afro and like a rainbow stripe across her face, basically to indicate like Black queer girl pride. And it's just a beautiful design, and it has a beautiful quotation on the back. The girls were also concerned, they were very concerned about cultural appropriation.
Mm,
They are seeing Black girls create really cool culture, right? Like the nails, right? The
yes.
hoop earrings, all of
Yes.
these things that Black girls have created. But frankly, Black girls are not getting the profits or benefit from economically. They're not building wealth off of their own design contributions, cultural
Mm,
contributions, and they're not being named and given credit for their cultural contributions, right? So they're very concerned about cultural appropriation. And they created a shirt that says "Made by a Young Black Girl." And their thinking there is that if we put it on the shirt,
Yeah.
that no one can take this from us, right? That no one can steal this design or this idea from us. So that was and there are there are two other designs that they created, social messages, folks can find on our website. I encourage you to go check it out. We're selling
Yes.
shirts, so feel free to purchase one and we'll ship it to you. But that's what the young people were working on.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that so much because, just in the process of creation, the empowerment there, and then to see it come to life. I mean,
That's right.
that's really why we're entrepreneurs. It's like to create and see those things, but to get the recognition
That's right.
and the money.
Hello.
Yes, that is all attached to that.
That's right. And we stipend our program, so the girls are automatically receiving some type of financial, benefit from participating in the program. And I didn't mention, on the third day of Black Girls Design Camp, the first 2 days happen consecutively. Then there's a week that goes by, which gives us time to produce the things that they created. So we work with a Black queer woman who has her own screen printing business, who screen printed all of the girls' shirts, samples. And then on the third day, they have a fashion show. And they select within their teams, they select girls to walk as models, young people to serve as the director of the show, makeup and hair, styling. They split up into different teams and they do it all themselves, down to, right now, Black girls and young people are loving their lashes. They're obsessed with lashes right now.
Yes.
And so one of the young people who participated has her own lashes brand. She makes her own lashes. She has her own lashes brand. Yes. Her name is Saskia Joseph. She has her own lashes brand. And so she provided the lashes and the lip gloss for the fashion show. So really like done for and by Black girls. And our thinking on this is that Black people have consumer power into the trillions of dollars. We're only
trillions.
We're only 13% of the nation, but we have consumer buying power into the trillions of dollars. Why shouldn't our girls benefit directly from that and be the ones to design work for and by girls and non-binary youth for themselves, by themselves, bring the profits back onto themselves, and then funnel the profits also into work that is going to shift conditions in the United States so that girls and non-binary youth of color are safer, can thrive, and can get everything that they deserve. And so that's our thinking on this, very similar to what SheEO is doing, looking to totally change the structure of the economy, right? Because of the work because rooted in what women entrepreneurs are doing. We're saying something similar about Black girls and non-binary youth of color. And when we invest in Black girls and non-binary youth of color, there's transformation that can happen at the root of oppression that couldn't happen otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, such a powerful model in that. And you've been such a catalyst. I actually want to talk about the email that you sent to SheEO.
Yeah.
When this really, it's not that Black Lives Matter has not been around for a while and that this has been happening for generations. But through COVID and everything that's happened, there is a big rise up. And you sent an email to SheEO that I also saw because it was forwarded to the team saying, hey, and you were a catalyst in things changing within our own organization and how we were talking about it. And so, yeah, tell me about that email.
Yeah. The time is now for all of us to step up. The time is now. There can be no more, I don't know. Oh, I never heard about this. Oh, is this really, there can be no more of that.
No more.
We all know. We all know. Every single person on the planet knows what Black people in this country have been facing at the hands of police, and then also beyond, in terms of systemic and structural racism that, frankly, is at the root of this country's founding in the United States and in other places around the world. But I'm in the United States, and so we're going to focus there. The historical legacy of anti-Black racism, ways in which the very economy is based on anti-Black racism, is something that we really all need to contend with.
Mm-hmm.
And so my email to SheEO was really rooted in a desire for all of us, those of us who identify as Black, those of us who identify as white, those of us who identify as whatever we're identifying as racially or culturally or ethnically, to really step forward and take a stand against anti-Black racism and to really put our feet to the fire, and put foot to pavement. And that doesn't necessarily look like joining marches for everyone. That may not look like hitting the streets and having a sign. It could look like saying, you know what? I'm going to do some research on what the companies are that are promoting racial justice, and I'm going to divest from those companies, in terms of my retirement funds and investment funds and all. I'm not going to do business with companies that don't have a specifically anti-racist lens. I'm really leveraging the power of our dollar. There are lots of other things we can do. And SheEO is a space of thousands of women of incredible influence.
Yeah.
And so for this body of women to take a stand would be just incredibly powerful, I think, not just for SheEO, but for globally, because SheEO has global impact. And so my desire in sending that email was to be in deeper community with women within the SheEO network, but was also to think about the impact that the SheEO network could have on the world in terms of shifting and changing the tide on anti-Black racism around the world.
Yeah. And the fact that, you were able to do that, and then, literally hours later, you were on a call that we have every Friday that's around dreaming, and that we could have this conversation. You also created space for people where it is uncomfortable, or some people are like, I just don't know what to do. And I think that buying power that you just spoke about, right? Like, we can vote with our dollars. We buy things every day. So people are like, I just don't know what to do. And it's like, you have provided, even in that, like, we vote every day. So for myself, even when this was going down, like, I remember being 16 years old and being at protests and all of these pieces. And well over 20 years later, I'm immune compromised and I couldn't be on the streets and I couldn't do those things. But being on these calls where we could have these open conversations, because then we had, a US venture call, and we spoke about this, and you really catalyzed that conversation to happen. And now there's a racial justice
working group. Yeah.
Working group.
Anyone in the SheEO community who's interested in joining, please reach out to, I guess, Jesse. Who can we reach out to? Jesse, to get on.
Reach out to SheEO. We'll get you in.
Reach out to us. We'll get you in. We're going to get started soon. Yeah, it's the working. I'm very excited about the working group.
Yeah, me too.
And I gotta tell you, the reason why I felt so comfortable sending that email is because at the Global Summit, I sat at a small table with 3 activators. Wow. Who came to my table because I was going to be talking about racial justice at these little small table sessions that happened at the summit. And they came and they wanted to talk about it. And they were like, we need more. We need more of this. We know that there are problems with race. We know there are problems with what Black folks are going through, but we don't know what to do, right? We don't know where, we don't know, we feel stuck. And I think that's totally fair. And as a Black woman who's been doing racial justice work since I was a teenager, just like you, in the streets, what I can say is there aren't a lot of communities of white women, since we're supposed to be unplugged, right?
Totally.
There aren't a lot of communities of white women where I feel, that are predominantly white women, where I feel comfortable doing racial justice work because of the microaggressions. And we talk about microaggressions, but because of just like the aggressions, sometimes not that micro, that I've been on the other end of. And it's taken me a lot of years of healing and thinking about what does it look like to really enter into racial justice conversations from a wholehearted, open-hearted place. As a Black woman, it's really dangerous. And SheEO is a community where I feel willing to take the risk because of what I experienced even before this current moment of social unrest around racial justice. I experienced it at the summit with white women stepping into conversations with courage, with humility, with just open-heartedness. And when that happens, there was something that transformed in me. I was like, oh, okay, like there's actually a possibility for cross-racial, deep, vulnerable work around around racism, and I hadn't believed that was possible. I've been struggling with my belief in whether or not that was possible. But being in the SheEO community has been showing me that I can step into it. I can move forward into these relationships with folks, and I'm excited about it because I think that the potential is endless.
Yeah, you know, Vicky says this is like, in order to transform the world, you need to transform yourself first. And we have been working so much on that. We have to do this inner work. And well, we're also transforming the world, but you can't have one or the other. Like,
That's
I
right.
can't be out there transforming the world and having my whole life blow up at the same time and not looking at my own shit. And a question was raised to us within the SheEO team of white women saying, how have you contributed to racism? And that hit me in the gut.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
And I had
it's an
to,
important question.
Yeah, absolutely. Important question, but something where my instant reaction was like, no, not me.
Yeah.
And then when I sat with that, I had to sit with it for a long time and over days and being like, and slowly it was revealing itself to me of how I have been a part of it and where it has shown up for me. And I think that question alone, if someone can really sit with it, it will, because everyone has. It doesn't matter what your background is. This is the system that we're in, and so how have you contributed to it?
Absolutely. I mean, we all have to talk about the ways in which we're complicit in some of the worst systems of oppression that have, and I think we have to take responsibility. That's important.
Yes.
I also think it's important for us to realize and recognize what the structures are, because when we look at oppression, when we teach, so let me take a step back. When we teach about oppression to young people, we talk about oppression on 4 levels. We talk about structural oppression. We talk about systemic oppression. We talk about interpersonal oppression. And we talk about internalized oppression, right? So structural is really looking at what are the historic structures that we're stuck in, that it's hard for us to, like, we can't even maneuver. So that's looking at structural racism, structural sexism, that literally, that there are systems that are created inside of those structures. So for example, the law enforcement is a system that is sitting inside of a racist structure. And in order to undo it, we have to start from the structure itself. So that's looking, so other systems could be things like, we think about the education system, right? How we have Black kids and kids of color and queer kids of color who are less likely to be able to excel and achieve inside of these, and looking at standardized testing, the ways in which standardized testing is set up, to that in a way that it benefits white students and it disadvantages Black students and students of color. When we look at housing, we look at redlining, right? The systems that made it difficult for Black folks to move into communities, middle class and upper middle class communities, right? These are systems that keep the structure of racism going. And then there's interpersonal oppression. That's the stuff between people, right? So that's like when someone calls someone a negative name rooted in race. That's when, we have issues like that, name calling, interpersonal issues. And then internalized racism is when people of color believe the negative beliefs about ourselves, right? When I believe as a dark-skinned Black woman that I'm not beautiful. When I believe as a Black child that I can't achieve, right? Because of the messages that I've received over time. And so I think inside of those levels of oppression, the different ways that oppression can look and the way that it sits, folks have to think about what's happening for me at each of those levels and what intervention can I put in place at each of those levels. And sometimes where I encourage white folks to start is in thinking about, one, the internalized oppression is not just, and I should go back, it's not just about folks of color. It also is about white folks. I can't wait to explore
Yes.
in the racial justice working groups about what I've learned about something called internalized racial superiority. What are the ways in which white folks have internalized their racial superiority? And there are some very particular characteristics. This is a teaser. If you want to learn more, join the racial justice working group. Really and truly, we're going to unpack what's internalized racial superiority and what's internalized racial inferiority. What are the ways in which Black folks and folks of color have internalized our own inferiority? And what are the ways in which white folks have internalized their own superiority? That's a good place to start. Let's unpack from there. And then let's think about, sometimes I hear white folks say things like, oh, I have a racist cousin. And it's often a man. And he's ridiculous, and I'm just not going to deal with him. I'm just not going to talk to him. I'm going to block him on Facebook, and I'm just not going to deal with him. Yeah, that's not going to work, right? And the reason why that doesn't work is because Black folks, like a person like me, is never going to get to be able to have an intervention with your racist cousin about the ways in which that they're harming people with their racist beliefs. But you, as a white person, are positioned. Your positional power is such that you can face off with your racist cousin and talk about the ways in which his and I'm using him because those are the people who I've but also her
encountered.
Their racism and their racist beliefs are harmful. You have the power interpersonally, right, to address that. So I think that those are some of the things we'll be talking about in the racial working group, and really thinking about tools. Like, I know we live in a society that's really conflict averse. It teaches us that conflict is something to be afraid of, to back away from, not to engage in. But truly, an anti-racist ethic teaches us that conflict is it. The only way that we are going to heal and overcome is to lean into conflict and to see conflict,
Wow.
To see conflict as generative. And to understand that conflict is not abuse, right? Not all conflict is abusive or violent. Conflict is just showing us a place. It's like a seed. And if we really water it and nurture it, everyone can grow. And shying away from it is what is causing us not to be able to really address issues, particularly with anti-Black racism, head on, and be able to heal from it. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. I had chills the whole time you were talking. I have never heard it broken down in the way that you have broken it down. I like every time I talk to you, or hear you speaking, I get chills. It makes me think. It goes deeper, and so I really appreciate the work you're doing and how deep you're going into it. And I know that's not easy. And even on the conflict piece, there's a huge discussion going on, even amongst my friends, about, well, this person obviously is really racist, so I'm going to block them on Facebook, and this person is doing that. And then there's other people saying, no, like, we got to keep the conversation going. And I stay away from conflict my whole life. I hate conflict.
Yeah.
And for you to actually reframe that into a seed that and that you need to engage in this, and that I can use my power for my racist cousin. You have completely reframed all of that for, I think, a lot of people, but I can only speak for myself right now. And so thank you for doing those pieces. I want to make sure that you get in the ask, because in the SheEO community, we have this incredible ask and give, which a flow of energy, which is even with how the money works when you get the loan of a venture, and having that flow and the perpetual fund. I just love how it all comes together. So what is your ask? And we're live, so it's bigger than just the SheEO community now.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is my favorite part. And I've been learning, I've been really learning to lean into making requests and to remember that, like, me and my people are worthy, we're worthy. To have our needs met, so that we can undo the historic harms that have been done to us over time. And so I love this part of all the SheEO events because it's a worthiness practice for me. It's a worthiness practice.
Mm.
So our ask, I should say, is we are fundraising $15,000. We are at like a little under 2,500 so that we can hire someone part-time to take on some key pieces of the Fashion for Social Change strategic plan, which I've been forwarding. But as folks who are entrepreneurs know, as the leader of a venture, it's very difficult to do all of the teeny tiny things that attend to the details.
All of the things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'd like to hire someone who can support me with that. I already know who it is. And so folks can go to www.tinyurl.com/fashion for social change. Again, that's tinyurl.com/fashion for social change. And you can make a donation and help us get to our $15,000 so we can secure this person for the next 6 months. And in that time, we will be doing some fundraising because of the generous gift of B, a linker. She gave us, we love B. She is funding for us a grant writer at 20 hours a week. So we're really grateful to her for that. And so with the grant writer and this person who we're hiring, they're going to work together in the next 6 months to secure us a larger investment so that we can bring that person on full time. So that's the work that we're up to, and that's our ask. Again, it's actually, I want to change this. It's
I put the.
Can you put it up? What'd you put?
Oh, sorry. I can put it in the stream and everything.
Ooh,
I put the tiny URL.
Oh, perfect. I just think that it might not be www, so I may have gotten that wrong. I think it might just
don't worry about it. You don't even need that.
Don't even need that. Okay, good. Yep. So it's just tinyurl.com/fashion for social change, and we just appreciate all of the support.
I love the work you're doing. Obviously, I can't wait to dive in on the working group and those pieces. You also have an incredible podcast with on the SheEO.world with Vicky, which I listened to it 3 times because I get to dive in there and edit and write. So and I literally could listen to it a whole bunch of more times. So that's great. And is there any final thoughts or anything action oriented, anything that we can do more?
I think the thing that I want to share with folks right now from a healing perspective is for folks of color who are listening to this to really root down into your healing practices, to be gentle with yourself in this time, to be in radical acceptance of whatever it is you're needing, and really listening intuitively to our bodies and to our intuitions and our sixth senses about what our needs are, and to really take the time to honor that. Sleep in, drink water, watch movies, do whatever it is, lean in to your healing. And for white folks to, in a lot of ways, for white folks who are seeking to wave a flag of anti-racism and who are really seeking to take action around anti-Black racism, I want to ask the same of you to be really gentle with yourselves on your journey, and to think about what are some resources to begin to dive into. There are quite a number of documentaries on Netflix. There are quite a number of book lists, including through the SheEO community. Start thinking about one book, one film that you can dive into, and select a accountability partner, which is something we're going to be doing in the Racial Justice Working Group. Select an accountability partner who is also a white person, to begin talking with and unpacking. I think sometimes we want to lean on our friends of color and our people of color for that work. And I would ask that folks not do that right now, that folks lean on each other and the tools and resources that are out there to begin that conversation, but go gently, because sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves, and it can almost undo what we're seeking to do. So go really, really gently. This system of oppression was created over hundreds of years, and it's going to take time to undo it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. We're gonna have to fool with the video. I know there was a little bit of lag there for some people, but that's okay.
Okay.
We can change and do anything after that. But I know that the audio is good, and so I just thank you for showing up today as you always show up and inspiring us. But I also know this is a lot of work, and you're living in the US, and you've been living and breathing this work, but this is also an intense time. I also cannot wait to get in that group. I love that you're doing an accountability partner. I think it's amazing. So thank you for all the work you're doing. Check out the podcast, and please go and support. I'm going to go do it right now off of that link. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure.